Welcome back. Today we're starting a new series. We're looking at the Leigh DR4 Pro dovetailing jig. In this episode we're going to set it up, look at the features. If that sounds interesting, stick around. If you've been following the channel for a while, you'll know a month or so ago I bought on the second-hand market, from eBay to be precise, a Leigh DR4 Pro dovetailing jig. Had to buy a few spare parts, there was some missing, but I've got those parts and now it's time to put it through its paces. It didn't come in a box, the thing came ready made up, so I've disassembled it and I've laid it out on the bench here so we can have a look at the parts that you would have in the box if you were to buy it new. We'll look at those and then we'll set this thing up and discuss the features. Let's get cracking. When you buy the dovetail jig, this is what you're going to get in the kit. On this side of the bench here, I've got some accessories and we'll talk about those in a second. Opening the box, you're going to have three boxes inside there. Box 1, box 2 and the main body of the box. In the first box you're going to find this E7 elliptical guide bush, unique and patented to Leigh, and this allows you to vary the fit of the joints as you're making them. Couple of spacers, these allow you to do things like asynchronous dovetail cuts. They also allow you to do the box joints. It comes with a pin wrench that you use to adjust this bush here. You get three bits inside the system: a through dovetail bit, a straight cut bit and a blind dovetailing bit. You also get a 1/2 inch to 8mm collet that obviously allows those things to work inside your 1/2 inch router. We have two scale assemblies, two support brackets and two support knobs. A square headed screwdriver that's used for adjusting the fingers, and a bag of nuts and bolts, and inside there you're going to find 4 clamp springs, 4 T-bolts, flat washers and associated nuts, 4 nuts and bolts for holding the jig down, a flat headed machine screw, 2 square nuts and a couple of Allen keys and a Leigh wrench. You're going to get 4 quick action clamp knobs and 4 clamp washers. All that is going to come in box 1. In box 2 you're going to have this assembly here, and these are obviously your dovetail fingers, and they come mounted to a bar with a guide bar inserted in the back. You're also going to get 2 lengths of this bridge extrusion. These 2 lengths are longer than this, about this sort of length, and you cut these up and that allows you to put bridges between these fingers to guide your router when it's in use. Obviously this is second hand, so there's not much of that left. But I do have a couple of these green dovetail bit boxes, and inside there are the bits that have been cut up by the previous owner. You also get this long bar here, and you can see that it's a different shape. This longer bar here is a cross-cut fence that allows us to do sliding dovetail joinery with this jig. We also get 2 clamping bars that are used to put the material into place. There should also be a nylon rod that goes into this hole here and slots down there, and that's used for making asynchronous dovetail joints. However, in my second-hand kit, that was one of those parts that was missing. I didn't realise that when I ordered the missing parts. I've got it on order and we will use that in a future episode. Now inside the main box you get the jig body itself. Very heavy, aluminium extrusion, very solid and well put together. You also get an instructional DVD and a user guide. Now that's not the original user guide, that was also missing inside the kit. So quick conversation with Leigh and then with Axminster in the UK pointed me to a PDF downloadable version. So I've downloaded this and printed it out. The original one comes as a spiral wrapped, quite thick paper, and it lays flat on your bench and is very useful. So I've sent off to a local printer to get myself a new copy printed out because it seems like a good idea. But for today, I'm just using a quick and dirty printout from my home printer. The DVD is okay. If you go to the Leigh website, there's all sorts of videos being made and published, and they're on YouTube as well, that are made actually by Leigh that are a lot better and have more information than's on this DVD. This DVD, although it's for the D4R Pro, it talks about an earlier incarnation of the D4R Pro. So some of the features and the way that the latest ones actually work is not included on here. There's a disclaimer telling you that, and some words come up now and then and point it out, but it does make it a little bit awkward to follow. If only somebody would make an updated series of videos about how to use the Leigh jig. On this side of the bench, I have a couple of accessory kits. Here I have the Leigh VRS. This is the dust extraction system that fits onto the jig. It's also got these clips here, and your router sits in the middle, and it gives you full width support of your router, making your cuts much more precise. And to be honest with you, although this is an optional extra, this is one of those must-buy things. And most manufacturers sell this as a kit, so you get all the Leigh stuff we've looked at, and you get this as well. This kit comes with a couple of dust ports, a dust shroud that's actually on here, two end caps, the extrusion itself, and these two clips here that are adjustable in width for your router plate. It also comes with these two extension arms that allow you to attach this to the system. The end caps have rare earth magnets inside, and this just clips on using magnetism, therefore it's very quick and easy to adjust in use. They also make a number of additional router bits that are very useful for the kit, and they come in a 7-piece set, a 12-piece set and a 15-piece set. Now this is a 12-piece set. There's a stray trend router bit inside here, that in case you're counting, and inside here you get a number of through dovetail bits, a number of straight cut bits and a number of blind dovetail bits. Handy piece of paper inside comes with the kit, so you can write the size on, and whoever had this before cleverly numbered them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so you can see the millimeter size here and the angle, and also the imperial version at the bottom. Not sure whether this comes with the kit or not, but this was also folded inside that gives you the same information. So I can now quickly say my number 1 bit is a 1/4 inch, and that's this 1/4 one here. So its depth of cut is 8 to 14 inches, the overall length is 2 millimeters, and the bit's called 5080. And going into number 1, I can pull out the 5080 bit. So that was quite a good idea. Not sure where that came from, whether it comes with the kit in some way, shape or form, but that's what you get. And it comes in this rather nice wooden box, and as woodworkers we like things in wooden boxes, so that looks really good. And finally I have a base adapter. This allows the E7 bush to fit to my Festool router. Now Leigh make a base plate for pretty much every router on the market, and if you have one with a threaded base on side, this fits directly. Anyway, I got the one obviously for the Festool Os1400 because that's my router of choice, but in Appendix 1 on page 69 of the manual it tells us a bit more information, and they make these for Porter-Cable, Black & Decker, DeWalt, Bosch, Fane, Festool, Milwaukee, etc. And there's quite a comprehensive table on page 70 of the manual that gives you the various makes: Black & Decker, Bosch, CMT, Craftsman, DeWalt, ELU, Finn, Festool, Freud, Hitachi, Mafel, Makita, Metabo, Milwaukee, Perlis, Porter-Cable, Rockwell, Rigid, Ryobi, Skill, Trend, Triton and Wegama, if that's how you pronounce that one. And it gives you the different router models, and I won't read them all, but I will leave a link to the PDF in the description so you can go along and see if your router is compatible. And then it tells you the router adapter plate that you require, and indeed if you need one. So I look down here, I've got a Festool router. It was an OF1400 outside of North America, so I needed part 493566, and there it is. Interestingly, if you live inside North America, you get one of these with the kit and you don't need to do anything different, which is quite nice, isn't it? Anyway, there we go. So that's it. That's pretty much everything that you need on the Leigh jig, and this is going to give you through dovetails, blind dovetails, sliding dovetails and box joints. Now you can buy more of these templates as added options, and I don't have those yet, but there is one template I'm very interested in. Now, although this printing is appalling, there is a page inside the manual and it talks about the different templates that you can get. Item F3 is more finger joints, and this gives you a further 4 types of finger joints that you can cut on the jig, extending the range from the standard ones that you can use on the supplied template. It's also got 6 iso-lock joints, and these are quite fancy shapes. It's probably not picking up on side here, but I'm sure if you're interested in the jig, you've seen these. And there's 6 patterns that you can get on these jigs. And this is a really interesting one. This is a mortise and tenon template that works with the jig. And I am thinking of getting hold of this one in particular because I do like the look of these mortise and tenons, and for the type of cabinetry work that we're going to be doing, I think that will be a really nice quick feature. And of course, Leigh also do some lockdown clamps that I'm not interested in because I'll be using my Festool clamping system. But that's good to know and good to have. Now, some members of the community have invested in these iso-lock joints and they're very pleased with them, and they've sent me some photographs through. And if you've used that joint, then take some photographs, send me a link on info@thewoodgrafter.com email here, and I'll start a little bit of a community page over on the website so you can see other people's work using this jig, because it really is impressive. Now, one thing about the manual, even my rubbishy printed out at home version, it's incredibly clear and easy to use, and I've heard a lot of people talk about how good this manual actually is, and yes, it is. So now we've got everything unboxed and laid out and we've associated ourselves with all the bits and bobs, let's get this thing put together. The first job is we're going to have to mount the jig body to a board. Now, this board is used to clamp this to a bench, an MFT as a prime example. So you're going to need to get yourself a piece of material 940 millimeters long and 150 millimeters wide, and the recommended thickness is 20 millimeters. Well, I've not got 20 millimeter, but I do have quite a lot of pine left over from the bookcase build, so here's a piece I've cut down to those dimensions. If you look at the base of the jig, you can see there's these 4 holes here, and in our bags and nuts and bolts we had these clamp down ones here. And obviously what's going to happen is this is going to sit on the board and we're going to screw it into place, and that's a one-time deal. Once that's done, that is done. It gives us some marking details here, so it needs to be 4 millimeters in from the edge and then 84 millimeters in from that hole, with holes with a centre of 745 millimeters. Well, that sounds all very, very jolly. So I'm just lying this on the back. I'm just trying to get this thing roughly centred up, because I like things to be centred, as you know. That's 93 millimeters on that side, and that's 90 millimeters on that side. I'll take that to 91. This side is now 91 as well. And then just eyeballing down on that, I can give myself a little mark there and a little mark there, and that should be 745 millimeters. So we can just measure that, and I've got 747. So we'll split the difference to about there. So there's my centre mark, so now we can square those across. one there, and one there. Looks pretty good. I now know I want the next mark 4mm from the front, so we'll come in at 4mm, which is there and is there, and then we want the final mark 84mm from that mark. So 84 plus 4. Now hold on a minute, no we don't, that's wrong. Sorry, that first mark should be 25.4mm. That's very precise, isn't it? You can tell this is done in imperial and translated to metric. It's 1 inch, so it's about 25. It's 1 inch they're looking for, which is 25mm. So we'll come in at 25mm. So ignore everything I've just said and make a mark at 25mm. Or if you want to, 25.4mm. And then we need 84mm from that position. So 84 plus 25, what's that, 109. So we'll do 109 from the front edge, which may take us to there. And that should be it. So I'm just going to put this thing in place. I just want to make sure before we drill and commit ourselves that this lines up. And I'm glad I did that because I made another mistake on this back one. What have I picked up there? Oh yeah, I picked up 99, not 109. See, it's always worth checking yourself. Isn't it strange when you do a simple job like this, you make mistakes? Probably because you get overconfident, I guess. So, I'm going to check myself once again. That's lined up nicely. Aha, now that is also lined up nicely. So that's it. So that's the board measured up. So we now just drill some holes. So he wants 4 7mm holes. Doesn't specify the countersink, but I'm going to use 11.5mm because that's slightly wider than the head. I'm not going to try and go all the way through. And then I'll just give this a super light sanding. And that sanding's nothing special, it's just to get rid of the splinters and the sharp edges on the wood, because we're going to be handling this quite a lot, moving the jig around. Why hurt ourselves? Okay, so I guess the next step is we bolt all this together. You look at these aren't Allen keys, these are square headed, and it's the same square head that comes with this screwdriver. So we just reach underneath there, position the nut, tighten that down. Yes. Now if you look at this, you can see that the board is set back somewhat from this front edge, and I guess that's deliberate with those measurements that they gave us, because the back is pretty much flush. The reason that's away from the front edge, of course, is this is where you clamp your board in use, and you wouldn't want this edge of your board here interfering with that, you know, artificially pushing that board forward, because that would affect the integrity of the joint. Good. So step 1 completed. Hurrah. Simples. You're now looking for these square nuts, and all it's saying to do is to drop those in and slide into the channel. One on the top there and one on the front there, and that's it. And it says that they are for accessories that you can mount to the jig, so we'll leave those in there, and that's a good job. Next you want these long nuts, and you can see that these have got a really strange elongated head, like an oval on top here. Now that's obviously working on a T-slot system, and these are going to slide into this T-slot here. If you look, you can see there's a round piece here machined into the jig. One there, one there, one there, and one there. Now that's going to take this washer, so that's the assembly you're looking for: elongated head, flat washer, nut. Obviously the elongated head goes into the T-slot and you position it with that flat washer in place there, and then you just tighten that down. Leigh kindly provide a spanner for that. Don't go mad, just make sure that that is firm, and repeat the exercise in the other 4 holes. The next job is to fit the bars. Now these are pretty much identical, apart from the fact that this has a Leigh D4R Pro sticker on it. This one is the back one that's going to slot onto here. So you drop on one of your springs onto each post, drop on your clamping bar. It's quite hard to see on the camera, but you can see these 4 little shoulders on this washer. They're different sizes. That's an equal pair, and that's an equal pair, but one pair is slightly lower than the other pair. So just make sure you're lining it up. And if you look in the middle, you can see there's that recess, there's that flat rectangle in the middle. That's just showing you that that's the lowest pair, so put that on like that. And then you screw that into place using these cams, got a threaded portion inside. Now it's a bit tricky, but that will just screw into place. So we're now going to mount the fingers. For that you need these 2 support brackets. If you look at them, you can see that they're machined, they're left and right handed. So look for that small protrusion there, that's going to go on your right. Small protrusion there is going to go on your left. And if you look at these, hopefully you can just see there and there are 2 little marks on these. Those marks need to go to the right hand side. So that one goes to the right and that one goes to the right. And these are both going to slot into these 2 square holes here. And there are knobs that screw into this part here, and that just secures it into place. The knobs go through this elongated slot here, and obviously screws that into position like so. Put them in place and pull them all the way up and just tighten the knobs down. That way you know that those 2 are level with each other. Just double check yourself. You've got your mark facing to the right, your mark facing to the right, and your screws are on the outside. Those screws are actually part of the VR system, and we'll come back to those in a second. It's now time to fit the fingers. So position your assembly like this, with the points of the fingers facing away from you and these screws facing up. If you're looking at something like that with no screws, you're wrong. If you're looking at something like that with no screws, you're wrong. If you're looking at something like this with the fingers towards you and screws, you're wrong. Screws up, fingers facing away, and you're good to go. You're then looking for these 2 guides, and they just simply slide on to this big bar here. In the bottom here you can see there's a big slot and a small slot. Now it's important that you fit these on in the right orientation. They'll only go on one way, so you can't turn that one over there, for example, so it's obvious how that one slides on, and similarly it's obvious how that one slides on. But you can put them the wrong way round. You could put this one on that end, or you could put this one on that end. Now the position of these is important. Look for this symbol. This is known as the half blind symbol here, and in the manual it explains what all these symbols mean, but that's what you're looking for. There's one on that one and there's one on that one, and that symbol needs to face to the right. So drop it on loosely into there, and similarly drop this one on loosely to there. Now don't tighten them at this moment in time, and also don't worry if this back bar here isn't inserted into both templates. It doesn't need to be. So we've got the screws facing up, we've got the fingers pointing to the back, I've got 2 green strips to my right hand side, and on the green strips it's the half blind dovetail symbol that's showing. Once that's done, carefully pick it up and slot that using this slot here onto those supports that you've already put into place. Now this is known as the bracket index line. Those are those two marks that we looked at earlier on. One here and one here. Those index marks index onto the scale that you've just added. Now you want to set those index marks in the first instance to 20 millimeters. When you're reading this, look directly down onto it. If you look at an angle, you'll get parallax error. So look directly down, so excuse my head. And you want to make sure that 20 millimeter is bang on that index. And then you tighten that in place using this thumb screw here. And then check yourself to make sure it's not moved. And then do the same with this one, 20 millimeter mark. Check they're both okay, and then you can lock this to the bar. And in the front here, there and there's a very, very small Allen nut. And cleverly provided with the kit is an Allen key. So now you simply lock that into place by tightening that down. And that's it, your fingers are now calibrated and set to the system. How easy is that? If you do ever take off these brackets, for cleaning or maintenance or just for a laugh, then go through that routine again. Put them in, orientate them onto the fingers, set them to 20 millimeter on the indexing mark and lock them down. Now you can see that's now firm. This back bar could still slide, and that's okay. Now loosen off these end fingers, the one here on the left, and slide that up to the scale you just put in place. Two fingers, hold it firm against that and tighten it down. Now these fingers are not used in normal operation. They are simply used to give your router plate some support when you're starting or finishing the cut. So move it over and forget about it. Undo this one. Slide that one over all the way to the end. Tighten it down and forget about it. Never move those again. And that's it. Your Leigh D4R Pro is now set up and your jig is now ready for use. What I now want to do is to just show you how we now add the Leigh VRS. Now this is the dust extractor on the Leigh jig. Very, very good, very well respected in the industry, and say the reviews I've seen so far on this make it an essential piece of kit. So let's get this fitted. To fit the extractor, we first of all take off these fingers, undo this knob here, undo the corresponding one on the other side, and just slide that out and put it on one side. We now take off these support brackets that we carefully positioned earlier in the process. Now obviously if you bought the system, you would do this on your initial assembly. You wouldn't build it and take it apart. I'm just doing it this way to show you how to assemble things to add some value. Take off these little Allen screws. They're probably not fitted to yours anyway. They'll be separately in the VRS kit. Now you're looking for these supports here, and again these are handed left hand and right hand. Now what you want to be doing is making sure that this profile here is facing in and this profile here is facing in. So this is your left one and this is your right one. Now you can see that cleverly the screw housing here at the top has a slight high part on it, and that overhangs perfectly this edge here on the jig, making that flush with the outside surface. So that means that this bracket here can locate into it. You can then see there's a gap between the two, and that gap is the thickness of this part of the bracket here. So this is incredibly well machined. So it's no harder than, first of all, quite loosely putting your black bracket with that screw and that washer into place, and then sliding the entire assembly onto the edge. And what I've ended up with is this black bracket on the outside clamped to the support bracket, and you can see that slides up and down, and therefore the elongated hole here now has the knob inside, and that just screws into place. Then Put your fingers back into position, square them up, doesn't matter what they fit on, so we'll go back to our 20mm mark. Now once you've got those black brackets mounted, loosen everything off and let the finger assembly fall down inside the jig. Make sure there's nothing holding you off, and that's good. Now the vacuum bar just fits onto these black bits and bobs with magnets, one there and one there. All I've done, I moved the clamping bar forward so it doesn't interfere with the dust extraction, and I just slot this into place and bring it up towards those fingers. With this in position here, this is lower than these back edges of these fingers. I want it to be flush with these fingers. So using my thumb, I hold down the support bracket and I use these fingers to just bring up the black bracket. And I'm just trying to get that to be flush. And once it is, I can just lock that into place with the knob. If I'm happy with that, lock down the Allen key. Onto this side, do exactly the same. Get that flush. I'm happy with that. Lock down the knob. Lock down the Allen key. Now make sure the Allen key is pretty tight here. You don't really want this slipping, and there will be vibration on it, and also the weight of the router. So just put quite a bit of turn on that. Don't go daft where you strip the threads, of course, because you are going into aluminium, but that's good. Just check yourself. Now that should be flush with those fingers all the way across. If it's not, what will happen when you use your router in this position, and you can now see that your router is going to be cutting inside these fingers, resting on these fingers and resting on here. If this is higher, your router is going to be pivoted forward. That will take your joint out of alignment. If you're lower, your router will be pivoted backwards, and that will take your joint out of alignment. So you want to make sure that everything is looking pretty good and square. So the final thing is to set up the router. We can now clip in our bracket like so, and now I can attach the E7 bush. And that just now sits on this fence and can move quite happily round between your fingers. Looking good. Coming back to the dust extractor, then locate these two bits of kit. So line up the dust extractor with the center point on your router, which is going to be there. And then these brackets, you'll simply hold that into place. Bring one up to that edge, making sure you're still pretty much centered. This is not precise, it's got to be another one of those make it near enough and that's good enough moments. Okay. And now as you move your router, the dust extractor moves with it, and that's how that works. So your router is now good to go as well. Now the reason that the E7 bush is so useful and unique is you can alter the width of the bush itself. So you can see a scale 0 through to 10, and this is basically an elliptical shape. Narrower when it's at the 0. When I move 10 around to that position, it's wider. So that allows you to tighten the joints up. So what Leigh are recommending here is set 0 to about 12 o'clock on your router plate, which is there, and make a mark on this bush here. And then you know that once the 0 is on that mark there, then you're in good shape. We'll take a square and we'll line it up with the center point on the Festool router fence there, like so, and using a sharp point we will mark the base. So we've now got a reference mark there. So we can now drop this back in, tighten that down, now set the 0 to that scratch mark that we've just made, and we know that we're bang on its minimal setting. So I can now just simply adjust that to suit on that scratch mark. So our router is now set up for use as well. So that's it. There is nothing more to say about setting up the Leigh jig. You will have some parts left over. You will have the long black strip we use for sliding dovetails. Obviously the spanner. You'll have a flathead machine nut, a couple of spacers and a couple of Allen keys, and the adjusters for the bush. You'll also have a few lengths of this, which are the finger bridges, and from the VRS system you'll have a number of different dust extractors. That's it for today. So in the next episode we're going to start a project. What I want to make is a first aid kit that's going to go on this wall, a small first aid cupboard, and we're going to over engineer it just so we can use all the features of the Leigh jig. It's going to be a box template and we're going to use box joints to hold that together. There'll be a dividing shelf in the middle that we use sliding dovetails to hold into place. There'll be a drawer unit that will have through dovetails at the back and blind dovetails at the front. So pretty much standard construction, but well over engineered for a first aid kit. But that's purely to give this a test. So we'll do that over a number of episodes. Next episode we'll look at the box joints. The episode after we'll look at the sliding dovetails. The one after that we will then look at the through dovetails, and we'll finish off by the blind dovetails, and by that point we'll know all we need to know about the Leigh jig, and we'll have used it on something useful in my workshop, because I don't have the need for any more over engineered pencil cases. We've got more than enough. See you next time. Hope you're finding this useful.